Scrum is the training wheels of Agile methodology.
So if the product owner sucks, like your whole team will like suck.
3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Innovation Engineer podcast, your favorite place for picking brains of your favorite engineers. So grab your nerdiest mug, fill it with your beverage of choice and enjoy. My name is Tarek.
And my name is Waschi.
And today we ask ourselves if self-organizing teams are killing your business.
Tarek, if I remember correctly, this topic was suggested by you, and because you had, I would not say a fight, but a harder discussion with your wife actually about the topic. Am I right?
Yeah, kind of. It's not only one discussion. It's one of our very, very regular topics that we are discussing because self-organizing teams and Agile methodology is something that we have basically every day in our life as a developer. And it's not always a positive thing, or at least this is what I perceive in working this way. And this is a very, very strong, a very difficult topic with very strong opinions on all sides. And if you're talking with an Agile coach, for example, or with other developers, you hear very, very different things and opinions about what goes wrong and what goes right. And that's why I think it's a very, very important discussion how we think self-organizing teams should work and how we actually work in self-organizing teams. Is this something that where you have an opinion as well?
I have a hard opinion on anything, but first you mentioned Agile coaches. So for me, what differentiates the good ones from the bad ones is the good ones are not dogmatic. So I work with so many Agile coaches or Scrum Masters, so they were called back in the days when the title shifted like some years ago. And some are like, yeah, Waschi, but you need to realize that stable teams is the most important thing and there's no other way. Like, no, that's not true. It depends on what you're working on your work extended company. Say, but Waschi, you need to realize that hierarchy is better. And no, it depends on like the state your company is, like how much you have grown, what the cultural, like, I would say coinage of your employees is from their past jobs and so on, which state you're in. So there is no right and true answer. So personally, I like self-organizing teams. I always strive for them, but I know that they can bring a lot of harm to your company if you just blindly introduce them. So, what's actually your point? So I didn't really understand what's the point of your wife. Is she pro or against? And what's your point?
Yeah, the interesting thing is when we discuss about this topic, we are not discussing against each other. We actually have a very, very similar opinion. The problem is that it is a very, very unpopular opinion and that we kind of fight against the world with this one. And the problem is we are not against self-organizing teams. We are just observing every single day how this culture is lived in a very wrong and counterproductive way. So we both, my wife and I both believe that self-organizing teams brings a lot of potential for high performance and very well-working and well-organized teams. If the people who are working this way know what they are doing and they are capable of actually performing this way. But this does not come from nothing. Yeah? You have to understand how this works and you have to generate some kind of trust and system within your team so that you can actually work this way. You can't simply take an arbitrary number of people, throw them in a room and say, now do something, be self-organized, and then expect that wonders are happening. This is not how it works. And this is kind of what we do. I work, I think, 14 years now in Agile teams. And I believe in every single case, this is what happened. The company hires some people, throw them in a room, say, here's a Scrum Master, do something Agile. And this is what we expect to happen.
Yeah. So I have a good question for you, but first I need to tell a story because that what you just described happened to me, like in exactly the way you described it. So first of all, the thing you said, I would like my favorite CTO. I worked with him like multiple times. Greetings out, Henning Gross. He said that's esoteric wrong value dogmatism. So that's what like a lot of companies, especially in Germany and Europe, do when they introduce Agile. It's kind of esoteric and quite dogmatic. That's like how a lot of like Agile coaches and consultants work. And that's a big issue. Like you said, you need to understand the values, and this cultural change takes just time. So about the story, in 2013, Axel Springer, the Fox News of Germany, how I like to call them, for whom I worked, decided that they need to in-house software development. So they didn't have engineers in-house. Even like their biggest news websites were built with external freelancers and so on, or external companies. But they realized that if they want to like win the game, and like the news game in the long run, they need to build stuff on their own. But they also realized their culture was, I would not say toxic, but the wrong culture to host engineers, because even back in 2013, engineers were a special breed of people. So, and they said, okay, like under our IT organization, which did maintain even like the printing presses, but also like the networking and so on, we are creating a new entity, and we call this entity Axel Springer Ideas Engineering. And obviously the shit right now is Agile and self-organization back in 2013. So they said, okay, let's hire some management and then bring in people. So within like 1 year, they hired 80 people. It was easier back then, but they also like did just threw money out of the window. So somebody can ask for any like salary, they said, yeah, we're hiring you. So they hired 80 people. And then they said, okay, now you are our agile and self-organized company. Please have a lot of fun. The issue is that if you bring 80 people who are only used to work in classic ways, who have a cultural background from working in companies where they learned how things are done, even if you hire some agile coaches with like 2 years of experience, there were no coaches with more experience back then, it was really an experiment of so much failing. So I can't like list all the things we did wrong and which went wrong. And I'm still, if I think about it, it still hurts a lot of things and a lot of potential we actually wasted back in years where we could have built so many cool things, but were wasted because we tried to do ourselves. We did try to autodidactly learn how self-organization is done. And there is a great book by a German consultant actually, which is called Self-Organization Needs Leadership. So that's the title of the book. It's a great book. It's actually more like a book for like, I would say, college or so on, with a lot of theory about system theory, psychology, and some stories about what could go wrong. And he described stuff when he was like a social worker and was responsible for kids and tried to get them self-organized. And he described the story. And I was like, see, yeah, that's exactly what we try to do with like our engineers and how we did it back in the day. And this is like the beginning of the book, but he just asked the questions, what went wrong, but he's not explaining it. He's doing it at the end of the book. Really great. And then at the end, you sometimes, or like step by step, you learn what actually are your wrong assumptions about like working self-organized.
Yeah. I can totally agree with this. And I also lived in teams where we managed to work in a very productive way, self-organized. But this was always a process of kind of evolution. The team went through phases and we learned what are the downsides of a strong hierarchy, of authoritarian managers, and we actually had this wish for more autonomy and more self-organization. And so we evolved in this way that we got trust, that we generated trust with the management, and we asked for some more autonomy. And then step by step, we evolved into this state where we were performing enough that the management said, okay, we trust you to do the right things without strict oversight. Yeah? But we still had an agreement regarding goals, regarding a roadmap, stuff where we said, okay, we take over responsibility for this and that, and for that you trust us that we reach these goals. And this way we managed to get a high performance team without strict management. And this was, for us, the right roadmap to become self-organized. But this was something that we had to grow into and that we had to learn. And all characters within this team were mature enough to understand that this was some kind of shared leadership. And the shared leadership required consens, and it required the maturity to step back, put your ego aside, and concentrate on the things that we wanted to achieve together. Yeah, and I know a lot of developers who do not like this kind of way of work, and they ask for, tell me what to do. Yeah, I need someone who's my supervisor. I don't know what the supervisor is. I should tell you what to do. I don't know. I don't know the company goals, right? And this becomes very toxic in a way, because people then just sense this vacuum of power and simply start doing whatever they want. And this is not what self-organizing is meant to be. It's not anarchy.
Yeah, so you just gave me so many trigger words I totally need to talk about. So like nearly each second word of you like triggered a thing I want to talk about. But first let's describe what is actually, what is a self-organizing team for you actually? Mm-hmm. So I will start if you like. So for me, it's a team who gets a goal from the company, because that's like a wrong assumption that self-organization means you can choose what you work on. That's not true. And the next second wrong assumption is self-organizing teams don't have hierarchy. So first of all, they can have normal hierarchy. And secondly, there's always hierarchy. It's called lateral leadership. So there's always like kind of a natural hierarchy in there. And self-organizing just means that you decide how you work, not like on what, but you decide like you pick how you want to reach your goal. So for example, a self-organizing team just gets the task. For example, we need more customers, or we need more stability, or we need an app, whatever. But like how they reach this more abstract goal, this kind of a little bit of strategy, that's within the team to decide for the whole team how they want to reach it. For example, do they want to, for example, for more customers, create a new marketing campaign or create like a new brand or whatever? That's up to the team to decide how they reach the goal. They are the experts. They know how to do stuff, and also like the small details. But it's not within their task to like just pick topics and say, nah, we don't want to do this. So obviously they are there and paid to work on for the benefit of the company. And what's the benefit of the company is overall alignment, because that what differentiates like high performing companies and companies with a lot of potential, which is alignment. So you can think of it as like vectors, and each team goes in a slightly different direction. Yes, they all go east, but like with a different angle. And if you combine all these vectors, obviously you're wasting potential. And the higher the different teams are aligned, the nearer or the faster you can reach your goal. That's for me like a self-organizing team.
Yeah. And I totally agree. There was not one single point in there where I say, okay, this is wrong. Yeah. But this is a very, very difficult thing to teach, because either you grow up in this Scrum world where you say, okay, you are the experts, but maybe they are not the experts, but you are supposed to be the experts because now you are a Scrum team. And as a Scrum team, you have to fulfill everything. And if you do not know what to commit to, no worries, I commit to you to anything, right? And so it's a very, very difficult thing to achieve automatically. For example, all the things that you just described can be seen as, can be misused also as kind of micromanagement. You go into the team and you say, okay, now this is your alignment, those are your goals, and you can put the goals down to like an everyday level. Yeah? And you say, okay, your goal for today is write this and that, and then you write this and that, and you write this and that, and now I made you self-organized because I gave you like individual goals, but this is on the other hand simply micromanagement. So what you describe is the theory, how it is supposed to be, and this can only work if the management and the executing team all understands where this journey is going. And basically, if you read a book on agile development, you find all of these theories in there, yeah, and they can break it down into a Scrum process, or they can break it down into a Kanban process, and under the hood, it's all there because you have this bottom-up approach of the team deciding on exactly the details of how to achieve this goal that was given through whatever management framework. But this is something that needs to be understood on all levels, and only then you can actually work productively on this thing. And this is, in reality, not how people are working. And what I'm observing in reality is that the team might say, yeah, okay, but you say we are the experts, and so we decide we do it completely in a different way. Yeah, and this might be then contrary to the company goals, but then there's this conflict where you say leadership is a very, very important part, where they say we do not accept your leadership because you told us that we are the experts. Yeah, so you can't tell us anything. And this is maybe the most important misconception in this whole construct.
Yeah, truth to be told, I hate Scrum. So this is like a thing you are not allowed to say out loud. So Scrum is not Agile. It's made for managers. You can start with it, but it totally sucks. It's the opposite of Agile. And I have seen so many bad things happen through Scrum, like Scrum Masters thinking, oh, I need to protect my engineers, so stakeholders aren't allowed to talk to my engineers. Like, what the fuck? Agile is about communication and talking to them. Obviously, they should not be disturbed because engineers need like focus time. But like, you're doing totally dogmatism. This is like what I meant in the beginning with this kind of dogmatism they have. And what you also described, there are so many traps you can, if you try to do self-organization, there are so many traps you can run into. For example, this technical debt trap. So you engineers, they only were used to think about technical solutions. So they normally think 100% about what's technically best without thinking about business, and often also without being pragmatic. So think of like they would have a golden doorknob if they can choose, obviously, and 105% test coverage, because why not? If it's good, we need 105%. So what I have seen happen with a lot of teams who are not mature enough or who miss leadership. And with mature, I mean that you need to realize that you're not paid to code, you're paid to create business value. That's one of the basic things in domain-driven design, realizing that actually writing code is a bad thing. So anything you can, like an expert deletes code and tries to not write any code, because code needs to be maintained, create costs, create complexity. So try to keep it as simple as possible, and always think about like business goals. If you can just use like Jira ticketing system instead of building an app, just don't build an app, because engineers tend to love building things. So obviously, if they start working in self-organized environments, say, oh, I can decide. Yeah, obviously what we built back there, that 6 months after I build it, obviously it's shit, because that's how it always is with software. Like, you did grow, you realize that you did make mistakes. Still, it's working. There's actually no need to rework it or to completely replace it, because now you're a fan of Go, for example, the language, and now you want to rewrite every service you ever did in Go, because why not? But in the end, there is no business value in doing so. But I have seen a lot of engineers saying, but we are autonomous. Obviously, we are doing something in business. Yeah, you're autonomous. Please go ahead. So I've seen like teams wasting a year on doing things which I say it's not good. And let's talk about another trap where you said alignment. And I think the biggest trap here is like OKRs, objective and key results, to introducing them to like create alignment. So you like wasted a lot of time. You will not say you fucked up a little bit, but you introduced self-organization methods and teams, and now you realize, okay, productivity is going down. We need more alignment. OKRs to the rescue. So that's like standard behavior I've seen in nearly every company I've worked in or seen in the past 3-4 years.
So, but did you just say OKR is a bad thing or OKR is a good thing?
So I personally love OKRs. I love self-organizing teams. It's just that if you do it poorly, you often do more harm than it creates benefits. So I have seen a company doing OKRs on a personal level. And I was like, I fought so hard against it. I said, okay, do you want to kill like the productivity of all your engineers? Then please introduce OKRs on a personal level and create a key result set for each engineer individually. So without like monetary benefits, still, it's like those are meant to be teams. If you want self-organizing teams and measuring team outcome and want the team to perform, please don't do individual like key results. It's insane.
Yeah, what I really love about OKRs is that it's a nice tool to force people to clearly communicate what they are actually trying to achieve. And if a manager or a team is not capable of formulating a clear objective, then obviously something is wrong. Then it's not possible to actually create some alignment, because the ability to clearly define what you are working towards is the foundation of creating some kind of alignment. And if you have a company with 100 people and you're not able to formulate what you're actually working towards, then this is the core of your problem.
Totally. Yeah. As I said, I love OKRs, and I love also like working with them because it gives me autonomy to decide what I do myself. The problem is that like every second company I worked with, their management objective was like double revenue. Yeah. And that's not a joke. That's like a high-level objective that, okay, what are we supposed to do with it? Obviously, that's the goal of the company. That's why we have a company. Even like in the German law books, there's written, what is a company? It's like an organization with the goal of making money. Obviously, we want to double revenues. This is not like anything. And on the opposite side, I have seen engineers who create their own objectives and say, reduce technical debt. They're like, dudes, that's no business value in like just reducing technical debt for whatever reason. Yeah. And the third thing I've observed is like still managers are used to micromanagement. So they introduce even maybe a good objective and good key results. And then they just pop up a lot of like stories and epics for the team to work on, which have nothing in common with the OKR sets. So, and then I go to the product owners, the product managers, and say, people, you need to write down like the business value of what you're working on. So for example, in which key results is this paying into? Because then you can prioritize. And like nearly no company I've seen who work by OKRs, they think of like the key results as business value and write it down in user stories. And a lot of companies just work on things still because management said we need to do this. They say, oh, hey, this is not paying into any key result or objective. You should not work on this. This is meant for you to be deciding on your own what you work on.
Yeah, but this brings me back to one thing that you just said. And you ranted against Scrum. And I personally, I'm also not a big fan of Scrum, but I believe there is some value in the Scrum framework. And from my perspective, Scrum is the training wheels of Agile methodology. And people who have had never contact with working Agile or working self-organized can use Scrum to actually understand what they are doing. And if you have a very well-educated and wise product owner, it can be a really, really powerful framework to actually teach things like business value and user stories. Because in this very strict framework, you have the product owner who gives the roadmap of the product backlog. And this is exactly where the developers get this alignment where they are working towards and have these iterations where they reflect on what they created and what benefits they get out of this. Yeah? Forget things like story points and all this crap around it, but thinking in backlogs, thinking in iterations, reflecting on business value, there the product owner is the most important part in this construct because he is teaching exactly how to measure the value of what you created and giving like the tone of throwing away things where you see, okay, we built this in the last month, but we now see that it does not fulfill our needs and our value. And so we throw it away, and he can do this by simply reprioritizing the backlog. And even though the developers might scream, but in this case, the process tells them, you have to accept this because the product leadership comes from this other role. And there you learn self-organization in the executing role, but the product backlog is led by the product owner. Yeah? And that's why even though I hate the specifics and the restrictions of Scrum, I believe that it is a great framework for teaching developers these kind of product-oriented values.
Yes, it's perfect learning playground. You're totally right. That's one of the reasons why you should introduce Scrum to learn it. But you also said the biggest issue I also have with Scrum, which is the product owner, because he has too many responsibilities. He needs to think in too many ways and needs to, in a single person, have too many skills. And that's also like in a Scrum team, you have one leadership position, and that's product owner. So if the product owner sucks, like your whole team will like suck. That's sure. Just it. So there's a great book about written by two army generals who talk about US SEALs and like how training them, and they have a team lead. And there was one experiment they did where they had the worst for like a training exercise, the worst team and the best team, and they just change the leaders. And the outcome after 6 weeks, I will not ask you, I will just tell you, is that the worst team became the best and the other way around. And the same is true with like Scrum teams. You can have like a bad engineer. This will it's not that important because you have multiple ones. But if the product owner is like inexperienced or is just not good, and I've seen many inexperienced or not good product owners for various reasons, then the whole team cannot perform. That's like the one bottleneck. So and that's a big problem I have, because I've seen so many bad product owners who don't know anything, especially like engineers who didn't want to do the hard task of engineering and software programming anymore. They say, I want to do some management. Nowadays there is no management. I need to become a product owner. Way less stress, and so on. And those are the worst actually product owners I have seen. And there is also a German company, which is Idealo, the price comparison website, and they have a nice concept of a double leadership. So each team has like kind of an engineering manager and a product manager. They call it head of product and head of engineering, and they two together fill out the product owner role together. And I love this concept because if you have two people, you like reduce the chance that one of them sucks by 50%. And that's, in my opinion, why those Idealo teams are so successful, because they just double the chance that you get a good product owner. And most of the time, you have hyper-performing teams when both are really good, head of engineering and head of product. But most likely, one of them is good and the other is bad. And then the teams still work quite good, Scrum teams, because you still have one good leader in the team. And Google management, which is not very popular in Germany, but I've seen it a lot in US companies or like in Switzerland, they follow a different approach. They don't have product owners. They have product managers outside of the team responsible for your different product area. And they have really hierarchy in team leads. So the team lead takes 50% of the, let's call it project management task of a product owner. But the rest, the priorities and the rest comes from the product manager. This is also like splitting up again the work on two people, and like is navigating around this problem Scrum has, which is a single point of failure, which is the product owner.
Yeah, but there might actually be one advantage of having one single point of failure. You can clearly identify the single point and try to fix it. I don't want to be like the bad guy and say you should regularly fire people who are underperformers, but it's way harder to fix this issue if you have this cloud of people who are all kind of responsible but not really responsible, and you can't fire the whole team because this would kill your company. And yes. So having clear accountability and responsibilities helps you to quickly fail faster and fix the issues.
If you have this, I totally agree. But there are, again, two issues with this. First of all, in the self-organization and self-organizing teams, like the team is responsibility, no finger pointing. And the same is true with Agile, obviously. And what comes with like introducing Agile and self-organizing teams is this kind of friendship mentality, which is wrong. Because again, a great book is the book Radical Candor, where they say if you are just friendly and care on a personal level, then you are just a bad leader and you're not strict enough, and this is bad for business. If you are just like radical honest, like pure honesty, then you're just an asshole and you need both. And the problem is, again, if you need to identify bad people, then you need strong leadership above. But again, with this, we each like each other. We are hanging around together. We are playing ping pong, table tennis, table kicker, whatever. This is kind of, okay, he's kind of my friend. I cannot be strict. So this is an issue which also arises with self-organizing teams. This we are all friends issue. It's kind of a trap because then upper management will not make hard decisions. So I've seen this in multiple places where everybody knew this was a bad product owner. He even did lie about his vacation days. He did not perform. He had no clue actually about what he was doing. So the team knew it. They complained. The manager knew it, but still it was like, yeah, we are all friends. So nothing happened. And this is driving away your best performers because they don't want to work in this kind of environment. And this is a thing I've observed in many companies, this we are all friends trap.
Yeah, I believe it's all a question or a problem of culture because we are discussing now about roles and responsibilities and structures and processes. But at the end of the day, I believe the company must achieve, and this is of course now this magic box, this culture where everyone understands what they are working towards and what they are trying to achieve. And this is the core. And the problem is if you do not have this culture and the company is misworking, does not work, and you hire more people and more experts, then they come into this broken system, in this broken culture, and probably on day 2 they are part of the problem because this is what they are growing into. If on the other hand you have this healthy culture and people are actually believing in the goals that they are working towards, and they might understand and reflect for themselves, something is wrong, we have to change the way that we are leading ourselves, and we have to change the way that we are approaching problem A and problem B, and throw away this thing and hire new this thing and whatever, then you can actually work towards this goal. But it's all a question of culture. And culture also means getting rid of parts that are not compatible with this culture. Yeah, again, it's always... When I talk about this philosophy, it always sounds like you have to fire the whole company or something like that. But separating yourself from certain people and influences is healthy for all participants. The people who do not fit into this culture, it's better for them to find another culture where they are fitting into. Yeah, and so I believe this is something, and this is probably the hardest part in leadership, to understand what this culture is you're trying to grow, and actually do the hard decisions and pushing the people into the right direction.
Yeah, but that's the hardest part. I totally agree. Like this cutting in the right places, and there's. What again? Are self-organizing teams killing your company? Yes, in most cases. And there is only because there are so many traps on the way. There's a Spotify trap, just blindly following the Spotify model, which is very popular in Germany. I guess Spotify never followed this. The OKR trap, the technical debt trap, the friendship trap. So many things which can just be very bad for your business if you just blindly follow it. And the only thing I've ever seen helping those companies is external help. So I would never, if it would be my company, I would never hire a Scrum Master or Agile coach as permanent, because then they become again part of the problem after 6 months. So the same is true with OKRs. If you have someone who's experienced with OKRs and just say, okay, yeah, you are now head of business manager, whatever, please introduce OKRs within our company. I would say this is a very bad idea. If you want to introduce anything, you need guidance from the outside, someone who's not part of your system. The same is true with Scrum Masters. Don't hire them as permanents. Change them between every 6 and 12 months. There should be no Scrum Master or Agile coach who's working for the same company longer than a year, because then he will not be have a view from the outside. He will be part of the problem. He will not be able to differentiate between, am I a friend or am I judging him right? So try to get them as consultants from the outside. The same when you introduce OKRs. So you really need people telling you from a perspective which is not within your company what's wrong. Then only this way you can really see what or where you need to cut things off.
Yeah. It's nice philosophy. Another metaphor that I can think of, it's not specifically what you just said, but it just popped into my mind. Self-driving cars. Self-driving cars are a great idea, and if they do exactly what we think that they are supposed to do, they would solve so many problems. We wouldn't have any car accidents. There were no traffic jams. Everything would just flow perfectly. Yeah? But for this to work, the self-driving car needs to know exactly what it is doing. It has to know exactly the rules. There need to be protocols for the cars to communicate within their network and all of that, and it needs to work perfect, and then you have the system. But what you can't do is just throw a bunch of robots into the street and say, okay, just manage yourself, yeah, and you will somehow people will reach their destination. This will end in catastrophe. But this is kind of what we do. We throw like 90% of our workforce into the system and say, okay, obviously Agile and self-organizing is great, so just do it. Without giving them the tools or the leadership or the structure, the roadmap of how they are actually supposed to work with each other, so that they have the chance to actually grow into this culture of performing.
Yeah. That's like kind of a great analogy, actually, with self-driving cars. Especially there are also like non-self-driving cars out there, which are people who don't work self-organized, and they create a lot of crashes, right? So it's not always only the team, but it's also like the outside factors. And you need like streets which are like aligned so that the lines on the street are not missing and so on, so that it can work out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But have you actually seen companies really like dying or crashing because of self-organizing teams?
I'm not sure if I don't have an example of a company that actually died because of that. I'm not sure that I have these insights of the root cause analysis of why company X or Y failed. Do you have something like this?
Well, not completely failed. I know some stories where companies said it became a problem, like they started self-organized as a startup and grew, and then it became a problem for them because they missed alignment and they missed structure and everything took way too long. So they actually introduced hierarchy and reduced autonomy for the various teams when they grew, let's say over 50 people. I have met 2 companies in specific which had this issue and got rid of it. But I don't know any company which really like died. It's just like a lot of companies are wasting potential if they just blindly introduce it. So obviously you need to attract talent, and talent is attracted to specific buzzwords. That's how it always is. Nobody wants with an old tech stack. Nobody wants to work in a classic environment. Even if in a classic environment you can perform way better, but it's still like engineering talent is attracted to buzz. So, for example, like 2 years ago, with a company said, we are working by the Spotify model. Engineers, oh yeah, that's so modern, that's so cool, and got attracted by it. So you still need to be kind of attractive. But also, I think a lot of companies, if they just kept the way they worked with hierarchy and other things, would perform better and have more business success. But this is just a theory I can't prove, obviously.
Yeah. I really believe, no, you're totally right. And I still want to emphasize that I believe that self-organization has a lot to do with maturity, and that teams are growing into this as a level of becoming better and higher performing. But this means that they need this foundation that they are building on top. And I believe things like strict leadership and clear structures are a great foundation to understand what you are actually working towards, so that you have the ability to supersede this level and generate this ability to work self-organized. It's like a very senior thing to do, to be self-organized and take over this responsibility.
Yeah, that brings me back to one of our last episodes when we talked about what makes a senior engineer. And
right, yes, perfect.
Yeah. So, and this having an eye for like business goals and contributing to them in a kind of pragmatic way, not like, we need to refactor things. This is part of being a senior engineer.
Right.
Yeah. And another funny story, I said I switched to this very chaotic company, and I actually switched 2014 when our agile and self-organized company was already a year old. And do you know the reason why I switched from my previous job? It was because they were agile and I wanted to work in an agile environment. Even it was very chaotic and I did perform way below what I performed in my company before, because my company before was very strict, very hierarchy without open offices, which like created a great environment. So we had like 2 people per office, small rooms, which you could really use to concentrate with glass walls. And we did build so many great things. So really high performing actually with our teams, still with a lot of hierarchy, no autonomy at all with we are very strict management, but we performed really well. But still, I read a lot about in 2013-14 about Scrum and Agile and self-organization, and I was like fed up with the classic ways that I wanted to work Agile. I learned so much. It was great. I would not miss it. But if you ask me, was I productive, really like as an engineer, very productive with a lot of outcome actually between 2014 and 16, I would say no way.
Yeah. Okay, maybe what I would be very interested in is to hear more opinions about this thing. So maybe everyone who's watching or listening to this podcast, maybe you can give us some hints or some comments about how you perceive this question of self-organization and how you observe this in your company. Yeah.
And the question I would be interested in all our like viewers or hearers or listeners, whatever. Do you like Scrum? And what's actually your point? So why do you like it actually?
Yeah. And the other way around, if you do not like Scrum, then what's the alternative? What is your favorite way of working? Yeah. And as I said, it's a completely open question. Yeah. There are no wrong answers. And I was in the past I was always surprised when I worked with developers who actually told me they do not want to have a Scrum Master. They do not want to do estimation meetings. Just tell me what to do. Yeah, it was really simple. I need a senior developer. I need a team lead who tells me what to do, and then I'm happy. Yeah, and I met a lot of these people. Yeah, I didn't believe it because for a long time I also grew into this culture where it was like Agile is right, everything else is wrong. Yeah. And so there was not allowed to be a different kind of mindset. It was not allowed to say Agile is a bad thing. Yeah?
But this is really an industry problem we have, because what you just said, that was also what I learned. This is like every Scrum Master told me, and it took a long time when I learned more about product management, product ownership, and how you actually do strategic planning, that it's wrong. It's just not true. So Agile is one method which you can use in a say specific product cycle, or where you can take a lot from how you should in general work, but this does not mean that Scrum is always the right answer.
Right, yeah. So let us know what you think. I'm really curious, and whatever you're writing down, we will accept this with open eyes and open arms.
Yeah. And next week, or on the same time next week, you can join us again when we talk about what's up with all these cookie banners. Because, I hate those. So it's like this thing, you go to a website, you need to click away this, do you want push notifications, click away the cookie banner, click away some ads. And those cookie banners really annoy the shit out of me.
Yeah. And then you are finally through and you start scrolling, and then comes the next banner. Hey, don't you want to subscribe to our newsletter?
Oh, yeah, you're right. That one I totally forgot. So annoying. So here again, have a nice week. Bye.
Have a nice week, and see you and hear you next time. Bye. Okay. So, ich muss auf Stopp drücken.